I'll go ahead and call to order the regular board meeting for the Davis City Public Schools Board of Education. If everybody will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There is an open meeting statement on the south wall of the boardroom. All board members are in attendance. Moving on to staff and student involvement, our 2 student board members submitted their board reports. Is there anything to add?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you both for submitting those and very all-encompassing, so I appreciate that. I have not received any public forum, so we'll move on to consent agenda. Approved minutes of the previous meetings. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Three separate meetings.
That's all.
Okay. If there aren't any corrections, then we'll move on to claims against the district.
For the most part, a typical month. The one big claim I would highlight is the student Chromebooks. Those would be the 9th grade Chromebooks. We were advised to start ordering those early from our technology suppliers due to, at the time, the tariffs that were in place. And then now just with the crisis in the Middle East, the supply chain could get interrupted. And so we had actually started this process a little bit early. So we did get 9th grade Chromebooks in already. So I'm happy about that. The price difference wasn't much different than last year, unlike some of the memory stuff that Adam's been ordering. Instead, the price on some of the smaller stuff has tripled in price. So we haven't seen it yet on the bigger ticket items yet, but we have this, started making those purchases now so that we can make sure we get them here in time and ready to go for August. So other than that, so other claims, I guess I'd bring to your attention unless you had a particular question. The one other comment I would make is you will see a bigger than normal natural gas bill next month. We had gotten a warning maybe a month or 6 weeks ago that the natural gas prices were increasing across the country significantly because some of the cold spells. And so we just got in the last day or two what our bill is going to be for next month. To give you a comparison, last year the bill was just over $8,000, and so for that same time period, which we'll pay next month, $13,000, $5,000 difference from one year to the next, just because the prices jumped that much across the country on natural gas. So,
and would it make it in Massachusetts where in Jeff
we are part of, yes.
Okay.
So that's even with our group purchase across the state. When other states have cold spells, we still pay the price. And so just so you know, next month you'll see about a $5,000 more than normal price tag on our natural gas in a month. So we'll warn you about that sticker shock before it happens next month.
Are there any questions about the claims? The ESU bill.
Yep.
It's kind of
That's our standard.
Monthly.
Yeah, we remember our contract is about 1.1 or 1.2 million. Mm-hmm. So that's a normal month. And when you're sending 14 SPED students to the ESU every day between life skills and behavioral programs, and then they also do all of our early childhood special ed, so they come and work with all of our preschool. And so, yeah, about $90,000 a month is a pretty typical bill from the ESU.
Right. If there aren't any other questions, then we'll move on to financial reports.
We did get a big tax draw this month, and so the general fund looks real healthy right now. Over $6 million in there, but that's good because in the next couple months, I'll be asking you for some pretty large transfers from the general fund to the depreciation fund if we decide to move forward with some of the HVAC projects, which I'll be encouraging you to do. And so we would funnel that money into the depreciation fund and have it sitting there then. So if we decide to do the HVAC projects at the elementary and or the high school, the money would be sitting there. And so, so luckily we'll be in good enough shape to be able to do that. In terms of the monthly expenditure report, we've spent just over 47% of the general fund budget. We're 7 months in with 5 to go. Real similar in terms of the percent of the general fund budget we spent this year compared to last year is real similar. They were both at about 47.5%. If you look at the general fund balance comparison, we are starting to ask teachers to put in their requisitions for next school year, like we do every year in March. And so I would say in the next 6 weeks, we'll probably approve somewhere between 200 and 225 purchase orders, so that teachers get everything they need for next school year, get it here in May or maybe even mid-April, get it inventory, get it put away, and so we're all good to go before they leave for the summer. So you'll start seeing some more significant bills, whether it's through Amazon, School Specialty, Abe's. Those are kind of the main companies that teachers like to use. Oriental Trading for stickers. It seems pretty popular. Depreciation fund. I did get a hold of the transportation committee and let them know we did have a transmission go out in a vehicle. So we did trade one in and purchase a new one this last month and then shuffled some vehicles around. You'll see that purchase there in the depreciation fund. And then I did list out for you the different projects that have been approved and are in the works for this summer. So the Bellwood HVAC project, 6th grade classroom and media center over there with some cabinets and bookcases and stuff. The elementary, that'll be the reading room and library there, and at the high school, both the choir room and the band rooms. See those expenses for the summer that we've had on our summer project list the last 2 years, and so that's already in the works. But I thought you might want to see what those costs are. So, like I said, all of that's in the works and takes several months for furniture to get here. So that's all in progress. Thought you might want to see that. Employee benefit fund, we're in good shape there. Like I tell you every month, that's really employees' money, not ours. Activity fund is sitting in good shape. We're just over 400,000 in there. Lunch fund, the expense isn't here yet, but I will let you know that we did have a dishwasher go on in Bellwood, and that's about an $18,000 expense to get a new commercial grade dishwasher. So they got it installed, and did they use it today, Peggy?
We used it.
All right. They were supposed to come yesterday afternoon, hook the chemicals up to it, and then because we've been out 6 weeks?
6 to 8. We were thinking at least 6.
Yeah, so we've been using paper plates, styrofoam plates, and whatever. And so
We had to teach the kids not to throw their silverware away, and
yeah,
we learned that skill today because we've been just dumping everything. Yeah.
no. So you'll see that large expense come out.
They're like, these trays are so heavy.
Yeah. So you'll see that expense. We did get some more beef from Terry Papa, as you can see. And so the claims this month were 58,000, but like I said, that's without the dishwasher in there. So you'll see a significant jump next month. No activity in the bond fund since we haven't had a bond since my arrival. Building fund, haven't had any activity in there either for a while. We could see, except for one purchase, we did take care of the last lease purchase payment. That did come out in February, and so I will now work with Kutak Rock and D.A. Davidson to then get the building and the land it sits on back in the school's name. Do a lease purchase. The land it sits on in the building is actually sitting in that lease purchase. Well, now we'll have to use an attorney to put it back in the school's name because we purchased it. So it'll take a little bit of paperwork, nothing big there, but we'll get that officially done here in the next month or two. QC Puff, we have a payment interest payment in June. Otherwise, nothing else there. And student fees, we haven't had any activity in there since we took care of FFA and FCCLA dues a few months ago. But glad to answer any questions you have on any of the funds.
Any questions? The okay. Then I'll move. You're moving? Stephanie moving? I will move to approve consent agenda items 4.1 to 4.3.
Second.
Right, to lift by Stephanie, seconded by Marcus. Justin?
Yes.
Casey? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yes. Board committee reports? None. Workshop conference? NERC says next week. I'd like to sign up for that, but I will be going down Thursday morning. Great, come back.
What are the dates of NERCSA?
What's that?
What are the dates?
Thursday, Friday.
I know.
Night to 20.
The 19th and 20th.
Yeah, I'm going to go down Thursday morning and come back
Okay.
right after.
That's fine. I just wanted to.
So, reflect. You drive down with me. It's fine.
Yeah. Nope.
Administrative reports. Did I do anything bad?
Nothing that I.
We got a text during the little kids basketball tournament that people were using the new parking.
Oh,
Yep. So,
Utilizing it. So that was good
good.
to randomly get a text from somebody.
yep. They sent us a picture of all the cars parking that.
Yes.
This is new parking. So
It is
good.
being used.
Yeah, it was very good to see.
Good deal.
Do any other administrators have anything else to add to their reports or something? I need to point out.
I just would like, if anybody is available tomorrow, you guys are welcome to come to Bellwood. We are June and school right now as we speak is being converted into a science center. Our PTO hired Edgerton Explorer Center to come out for the day. And our stage is a big blow-up planetarium. And the entire gym is full of tables for exploration. There'll be demos and labs. Our cafeteria tables are in the art room to make all this work. We're doing a sack lunch, but so from 8:05 to 3:20 tomorrow, the kids will be doing different science experiments all day. They'll be taking a 45-minute lunch. And so our PTO has invested over $2,000 to make this happen and have been saving money for 2 years. So you're welcome to stop in and it'll be great. So the PTO is setting up now with them and it'll be a great day. The kids are super excited.
Sounds really cool. So Peggy sneaks out. Just know I told her it's fine. If she needs something as they're setting up tonight, if she needed to sneak out, to go ahead and do that. So if you see her leave, that's why.
Second. So
Nice.
it'll be really cool. The kids are, and some of our kids that don't get experiences like that are super excited. Yeah. Yeah. Are there any questions from the board on any of the administrative folks? I did want to point out, there was, for me, a lot of cool, exciting things. I really appreciate Mrs. Atho's report and everything about the homework policy and the family handbook and just some of the things that you're working with on either the school improvement team or with MTSS and stuff like that. There's really some things that are just moving us forward and just helping us be more communicative with parents and getting everybody on the same page and their student and the school. And I particularly liked helping families be more involved in the schedule and scheduling them and throughout their high school years, just because that has been something where it's just like, oh, you want to be involved in your child's where their path, and that's not something that I have been able to do. And so I look forward to being a part of that. So that's really exciting stuff. So thank you for putting that in there and just keeping us abreast of what you guys are doing. All right, if there's nothing else to add, then we'll move on to discussion and action items. Discuss, consider, and take action on early graduation requests
We have two requests that Mr. Fish brought to me, Haley Pharma and Reese Sloninger, both requesting to graduate at Christmas next year. And so in order to do that, this official board approval. And so Mrs. Aitho, you have anything to add to those requests?
No, I think they're both doing for the right reasons.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved by Casey, seconded by Marcus to approve the early graduation requests. Justin,
Yes.
moved on.
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
I vote yes, Casey.
Yes.
All right, discuss current legislation.
There you go. I'll take one page down. This is where the agenda comes to a screeching halt for a while. There you go. Some light reading. Deep sleep tonight.
Cheats.
See what forgot the other. Everybody get one or any short?
Go ahead.
To this agenda item, I had kind of already attached for you guys some information that NASB, your professional organization, sent out to you, some of the legislation that they were keeping an eye on, and either they were supporting or not supporting, etc. I had given you some information that NERCSA had sent out, the Rural Schools Association. I'd sent you just a little bit of information from NCSA, but coincidentally today I went to the GRIT conference, the Government Relations Conference in Lake Edens. And so what I just handed out to you is the handout that was shared with all of us that were in attendance today. So I'll try to fly through some of this legislation because this is the most current. It's hot off the press as of today. I'll go through it fairly quickly, but if there's something you want me to go back to or you have a question, fire away. But I'll just kind of start on the first page, 1219. That would limit our tax growth to 2% plus real growth. I think this last year that was maybe 0.25%, so it'd be somewhere in that 2.25 to 2.5%. So it limit it. I don't think this is gaining a lot of traction right now. There's a lot of cities and counties that are pushing back on the legislature with this, and so I don't think it's going to go, but you never know. There are some discussions behind the scenes being had, things like, can people handle 2.5 instead of 2% plus real growth and those types of things. And so this is one we'll obviously want to keep an eye on. That was 1219. 653 was signed into law, and it had two components. The two things are not related at all, but you can see at this point in the legislature what happened is somebody wants to get something across the finish line, so they'll work with another senator to add their bill as an amendment to their bill, and then together they get passed. Okay, and that's kind of what happened here. 653 is an option enrollment bill, which says if you take one kid from a family, you have to take them all. So for example, you've already accepted a third grader and now they have a kindergartner that they want to opt in. You have to automatically take them regardless of the cost to your district. So even if they're special ed and it's a $100,000 a year cost to your district, it doesn't matter. Once you've taken a student from that family, you have to take her in.
And once they're optioned in,
They're
optioned.
Yeah.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, a family could be, if two separate households get together, then
That has not been determined yet.
the rumor I've heard is that.
Well, that could be, but
That's
we
how that
won't
would
know
be.
until the attorneys have a chance to process everything that's in the weeds, because what does a sibling mean?
This doesn't include preschool though.
No. Nope. But what it did include, and what we had been asking for, is the ability, and we don't do it very often, but we now will have the ability to suspend a kindergarten first or second grader next year when there's violent behavior. You know, right now we can't do that. And it's not like we do that all the time, but there is that occasional need where we need to have another 2 of our
When does that become like enforceable? Like when can?
August.
August. Okay, I didn't
Yes, I will tell you that a principal in the state thought it went into effect March 4 for this year and already suspended a student is on leave
know. Oh, shoot.
because they didn't quite understand how, when law is going to affect, how that works. And so this does not go into effect until next school year. In fact, you can see there, it says 90 days after the legislature.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
They adjourn in April, then you gotta wait 90 days and then it becomes code. So, retirement legislation, I think I had mentioned this before. Right now, there's a 180-day sit-out period, and during that 180 days, retired teachers can only work in your district or any combination of districts 8 times a month. So they could sub 8 times. Administrators have been asking for a change on this, and so this was a compromise that I think will pass. It's on final reading. They can't do anything for 120 days. However, after the 120 days, it's unlimited. They can work for you as many days out of the month as they want. So
June, July, August.
so it'll, as soon as September, actually we'd have to get through September, June, July, August, and September to get to the 120 days. But then basically come October 1, it's a free-for-all. We can have that retired teacher sub every day if we want. Or they can sub in any combination of districts every day. So that's kind of the compromise. Because right now it's 180 days, but they can work 8 days a month. This will be 120, you can't do anything, but then after that it's unlimited. And so, so I think that'll be a good thing. 820 isn't a big issue, and then it just, when they make changes in the retirement contributions, it'll now go into effect with the same calendar as our budget, September 1 instead of July 1. Which just makes bookkeepers a little happier. 1050 is the 3rd grade retention bill. I don't think that this is going to get enough traction to pass. There are several amendments being added to it right now, including amendment that would say, instead of just automatically you have to be retained in 3rd grade, schools would have the option of meeting with the teacher, the parent, the principal, and that group would get to decide if that really in the best interest of the kid, or it wouldn't be just an automatic. If you don't pass the state test, you're automatically retained in 3rd grade. And so they're trying to make it a little more workable for schools, but I'm not sure even with all the amendments it's going to pass. But just know, that's a big deal.
Well, and I would say too, on this particular one, it's very frustrating for me when they refer back to the Mississippi Miracle, that their reading scores have been raised so much because of the law like this that they passed in Mississippi. I was like, that's because they were so low. We are not necessarily in that boat. So to compare us to somebody whose reading scores was so low, they're just, so I think it's an unfair comparison when they're trying to push this narrative that this is something that we need.
If that was an automatic holdback, what's that look like for us?
Not good.
And that's what I'm curious.
Was that good?
There could be a year where we would need an extra 3rd grade teacher and maybe one less 4th grade, but maybe not. It might be one of those in-betweeners.
I don't even necessarily mean our school, just schools in general.
Yeah, but it's not in school ours.
Casting, I mean.
Well, and I've heard different rumors, like, is special ed going to be an exemption? Is it not? Some of the things in that, which would change some things, depending how that goes. But, I just know some kids that would be really detrimental too.
Well, the thing that I get concerned about too is schools like Bellwood, where you have 1 teacher per grade, not 2. And so it's like, okay, we're holding kids back. So then do we now the next year have a 3-4 class because we don't have, enough kids necessarily? It'd just be really, really weird too to navigate all of that enrollment.
I mean, the good thing is, plus minus, but the state came out that we all have to use Dibble's 8th edition. So it would be and we have been using it. So our teachers are used to doing that. But if you're using that one measure to decide, that's scary.
So we'll keep an eye on that. 937, I'll let you read the first part of that on page 2 yourself. The only part of it I'll draw your attention to on page 3, 937. This is one of those package bills where they basically have taken 4 or 5 or 6 bills and melted it into one. The two pieces of this that probably give schools the most heartburn, 1146. Basically, parents could call in and basically any excuse could be given as an excused absence with no doctor's note. And so you can imagine every school is going to have some families that have used the ability to just call your kid in and say they're not going to be here today and give any reason and not require any kind of doctor's notes or anything. And so the interesting thing, it was amended then to add in documentation, but now the person who introduced the bill has now introduced a kill motion where she doesn't like the amendment that was added to her bill.
What's her reasoning for?
Well, she gave a couple examples of where a school district had turned a kid in to the county attorney for truancy, knowing full well they had been in a car accident or had a major kidney, health issue. And so sometimes it happens once or twice, and then they assume all 245 schools are all doing.
In that scenario, the kid would have medical.
Exactly. And they wouldn't be in trouble with truancy anyway. They get a note from the doctor and it'd be done deal.
Really?
So, exactly. And the other part of it is 1243. This would allow any homeschooled student to participate in any extracurricular of their choice and not have to take one class. So they could be homeschooled all day, come play football.
Is this the one that you're talking about where they play football for us and then go to Seward and play volleyball
Yeah,
for them?
there's just literally they did realize and they did amend that you have to make an exception for FFA because the charter, the national level, you're required to be in an A class to be in FFA. So if you see, they did make that amendment, but that was just for FFA. But it doesn't take care of any of the rest of it. So those are just a couple parts of that new bill that,
My homeschool, so my kid could be a champion.
So purity.
Which one?
Not much to say on the high school equivalency or the 529, other than the 529 plan increases from 10,000 to 20,000 a year. Moving on, page 4, 940. This is the food additives and then the dye. Where would be okay next year, but the year after, the 27-28 school year, all of those 6 color dyes that are listed would be, you couldn't have serve food in your cafeteria that contain any of those dyes. And so
if you're subscribed to the federal food program,
there's already some legislation at the federal level. Kennedy needs to do that, and so schools are going to already have to adjust at the federal level, and so
I just didn't know what the how our program works. If
and
that's
so, for example, though, right now you couldn't serve a Fairbury brand hot dog without the red dye. That's just the quickest, easiest example I can give you. Is you wouldn't be able to serve that hot dog because it's got red dye.
Just take the red dye out of it.
So. And then the last piece of that, the human relations training, trying to get rid of the requirement for the human relations training in order to get your teaching certificate. And there's about a 50-50 split on whether that's a good idea. So doesn't give me heartburn one way or the other, but I just know that all of those items, along with some of them I skipped over because they weren't real critical to David City Public Schools, are all in that one bill now. So just know that. Let's see. I'll talk about 575 in a little bit. Minimum wage doesn't pertain to us anyway. And so I'm going to kind of skip over some of the minimum wage stuff. Schools are always exempt from that, which people don't realize. 292 CA, there'd be two different. There'd be a fair market value and a taxable market value on property. They told us today it's not going anywhere. Even though it's been prioritized, it's held up in committee and it's not going to go anywhere. That was California had done that, and I think maybe Prop 13.
Yeah.
7:30. If this one gets to the floor, this is going to take everything to a screeching halt. This is the designations of restrooms and locker rooms based on male and female. And so you can see even coming out of the committee, it was a 5-3 vote. If this one gets to the floor, all other discussions will come to a screeching halt. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't. I'm just kind of giving you the facts. 966. It's got over $1 million price tag, and basically kids that are getting reduced lunches would get free lunches, and the state would make up the reimbursement cost.
He mentioned that them talking about the budget the last couple of days that they're in.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going to get the 1.2 million when when you've got such a deficit right now, but we obviously would have some families that would benefit from this. The kids I probably worry about the most are the kids that are at the reduced lunch or just barely above the reduced lunch and are paying full price. At least with the free lunch, yes, I'm still concerned about them being in poverty, but at least I know we're feeding them breakfast and lunch every day and it's costing them nothing. It's that next group in there that are getting reduced or just barely missing out on reduced. Those are probably the families that probably struggle, with food the most. And so if this could help another group of our families, I would love this, but I don't know where the money's going to come from. But I think it's good on the legislature to at least have the conversation, and I would fully support our families. 596 would give us the ability to advertise our meetings digitally and not have to have them posted in a newspaper that nobody reads anymore. And so it'd be nice to be able to do everything electronically now. And so that's what 596 is. Moving down.
Isn't there already a website?
Yes, there is. And so why not use that?
Yeah, I think you have to ask the paper to post.
And they already do it for us every time.
Yeah.
But yes, there's already a digital website available that's being used. So it wouldn't be that big of a change. Not going to go into 901 at all. You can read that for yourself. It's doesn't have a lot of legs. 803 is where we thought 1219 would land, and Van Gilleren said no, 1219 will be standalone. That's that 2% cap plus real growth. So the next one, 468. When I first read it, I didn't think it would affect schools at all because I was just looking at the percentages on the next page, on page 7, and it said, well, school districts are still going to get 60% of the motor vehicle tax. So what do we care, in terms of the change at the city and county level? But then I had to reread it. The fee that the county charges to collect those motor vehicle taxes from us goes from 1% to 2%. So they get an extra percentage right off the top before we get our 60%. And so we would, in that case, get less because they're going to take, really twice as much as they are now because they're going from 1% to 2%. It's not a 1% increase. It's sort of the real dollars. You're doubling their fees. And so that's there. 507. If a student is sped and their IEP requires them to be transported, even if they're an option student, you'd have to figure out transportation for them. But luckily that bill was amended to only include OPS. So I'm guessing that means somebody's mad at OPS. And I've also figured out how difficult that would be in rural schools and small schools. Because there's some small schools that get a lot of option kids. So 429, just deals with professional organizations having access to your teachers' emails so that they can potentially join that organization. So it'd be like right now, NEA or NSEA sends stuff to teachers about joining, them for professional liability. There's other groups out there that offer similar liability coverage, and it just means those other organizations would have the same access to your teachers as NSEA. It's really nothing. It's not costing us anything. 1034 is really a bill for ICE. And basically, ICE could not come into your school without a judicial warrant. That's already a federal law that's in place, but they're also wanting to make it state law. Federal law trumps state law anyway, but this would just give a second layer of coverage to schools that we could say, unless if you have a judicial warrant, you're not coming in to take a shit. Let's see. 1217 is epinephrine. Not concerned there. 765 was one that we were concerned about. It was going to say that you had to get at least 50.1% of your voters to turn out to vote for any school bond. Not that you needed 50% of the votes to pass. You had to get 50.1% of all registered voters
We ever
in your district. No,
No.
you're not going to get that. And so I think they said in the last 20 years, not one school bond were passed in the state of Nebraska. That was the threshold it had to meet. Luckily, 765 has not been prioritized, and they haven't even voted it out of committee. So 1112 was a bill that would have had a common grading scale, again, across all schools in the state, public and private. And the private schools had no interest in being part of that. We didn't either. And so that's not going to come to fruition. 1188 is an interesting one, basically saying school districts, we can't own any real estate that a foreign adversary would have interest in. I don't know of what real estate property a school district would own that a foreign adversary would have interest in. And I'm not being facetious. I truly,
It's a foreign adversary.
China,
Another country.
to Russia.
Like if you're on ground.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
like jointly. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
I know.
So I'm not even sure who that, who they're worried about. It can't be David Seddy. So anyway, 1224, this one got added into 937. This was, and basically, if a family is under investigation by HHS, during that investigation time, the parents couldn't come in and withdraw their kid from school and say, I'm going to homeschool them. And so, unfortunately, there are some families that once they're under investigation, they want to fly under the radar. And so this would not allow them to do that. I think this is actually, it will help keep kids safer. I actually think it's a pretty good measure. So yeah, so that's 1224. The last one here, or last couple, 575, this is an interesting one. It was presented as they're just going to move up the pink postcard dates up earlier. But the rationale being, if we have the pink postcard meetings in August and a week later, school boards approve their budgets and taxes, that's way too late in the process to even, make a change. And so this was presented as a bill. Well, we'll just move that up to July so that there's a bigger time frame between public input and in September when boards approve their budgets. Well, there's a couple of things. We don't get our certified valuations until August 20. So our potential tax levy would be an estimate at this July meeting because valuations, they're not moving the certification date up at all. They'll just give us an estimate, which means our tax levy is an estimate also. And so I'm not sure, I understand the intent, but people are going to be mad if tax levy isn't what we presented in July when it changes in September, when we get the actual numbers 20th of August. But the other kicker is, and it wasn't presented this way, it caps your tax asking at the same amount as the previous year, unless if the board does a 2/3 majority vote. So you can't increase that at all.
Tax asking.
Correct. So if you ask for 10 million this year, come September, you could only ask for 10 million. The only way to go over that is that we'd have to have a board meeting and 2/3 of the board would have to vote to go above that.
So there's no movement on the pay scale.
Well,
Or that.
well, actually, you're already too late because you've already
Or you've
done it. You've already negotiated for next year. And so this is an interesting one. Just as a side note, and I'm just giving you a warning in case if this happens, it says that the meeting would have to be between July 14th and July 24th. Just know I'm on vacation those 10 days,
So
which means one of you would be the one at Pink Star meeting giving our presentation. So not saying you can't, I'm just saying I don't plan to cancel my airfare and trip. When I saw that, I just smirked today. Like, that was great timing on my part. So anyhow, I'm just giving you a heads up. I don't know.
Keep an eye on that one.
So you got to keep an eye on that one, star that one. I don't know if you're going to thumb wrestle on who gets to get the presentation. Maybe you make the new guy do it. You know, he's not here. So, the last two, 1071, the appropriations bill. Just know that SPED reimbursement, which is everybody talked about at 80%, it's actually closer to 78%. 80% was actually the ceiling on that, not the floor. That was based off like 23, 24 data. And so just know it's looking like an $18.4 million reduction in state aid reimbursement being dispersed to schools. So you're going to be more like at 78%, and then the next year about 76%. So it's going to go down, my rough estimate is about 2% a year. So we can no longer count on an 80% SPED reimbursement because the dollars aren't going to increase, mainly they're going to go down. And so as our SPED
Keeps growing.
keeps growing, just know the reimbursement percentage is going to be going down. And so, this is kind of what I warned you guys about a couple of years ago, when, the state promises X amount of money. Well, if there isn't enough money to be spread around, everybody takes a little bit of a cut. And that's exactly why you have to have a little extra money in your general fund for exactly this kind of stuff. When you have a $4 million spend budget, and now you're not going to get the 80% reimbursement, that's a significant amount in a school district our size with the amount of sped population we have. And so that's why you keep extra money in the general fund to not hurt kids at programs and have the money to keep doing what's best for kids. So I just shared that with you. And then 1072, they were talking about that today on the floor. That's the cash transfers, basically, where they're taking money from some accounts and putting it into the general fund to help balance the budget. So that was going on all day, I think. So those are the bills. I know it took a long time that I just wanted to highlight. It's fresh off the press. Like I said, I just heard this info today. I was in Lincoln from 8 to 1, and I'll try to answer questions for you. I'm not an expert on legislation, but I can do my best to either answer or find an answer for you if there's anything else you need or want.
And remind me again, how many days are left in the session, right? Per kid.
It's a 60-day session. I would say about 20. It's about 19. Yeah, I'd say today was, I think, day 40 or 41.
Yeah, I think from today, it sounded like the budget was going to take up a good amount.
test if you don't think you can foster real buckets. So
No.
it's good. It's not really much to get done a little bit.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Not any.
On that too, go back to that 1071, you know, it's terrible reimbursement. So the original bill didn't state a percentage, it allocated dollar amounts
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
according to the year.
according to the year. So in that year, it was 80%.
Correct.
I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah. Yep, and in the packet I gave you guys ahead of time, the attorneys, you can't sleep late at night, Sunday, March 8th, misconception about sped reimbursement. They had one of the school law attorneys explain that sped reimbursement in a lot more detail, and I included that in your packet. That explains it a lot better than I can.
All right, any other questions? No. So, okay. Then we'll move on to 8.3, discuss the long-range facility plan. Nope. we're not.
Anything out of there?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Sorry, 8.2.1, discuss with consider take action on updated board policies.
Yep, didn't take these to the first floor to the policy committee because these came straight from our school attorney. Next year, our annual report has to include a computer science and technology education status report. That's a new, every school has to teach at the high school a computer course. And so we basically just have to give an update on how that's going in our annual report. And I'll help you with that. 3540, I gave you both the current and the update there. It changes the threshold. When a project's over 144,000, you have to involve the State Board of Engineers and Architects. Anything above 144,000, it just changed the dollar amount. 5601, we have to have an anaphylaxis policy by this summer and then include it in our student handbook. And so I submitted that to you. And then for bids and contracts, anything above 136,000 on a building project would have to be bid out. And then the last policy I did send to the policy committee ahead of time, 5105 is a new one. We discussed at our January work session about adding the use of a wand. So if we were, for example, concerned about a student having a vape on them, obviously we can't do a search, but we could do a wand, and this would allow us the ability to do that. And this is something that would go in effect for fourth quarter if you guys are approved it tonight.
Do we have the one gift?
No, we haven't purchased the wand.
Oh, wait, no.
So we're waiting on
Gotcha.
whether or not the board would approve this.
Yep. Good. Are there any questions about policies that were listed? Guidance? No, I didn't have any concerns about the student searches that were sent out. I thought that looked all.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the updated and the new board policies as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Donnie, seconded by Marcus. I vote yes. Justin?
Yes.
Marcus? Donnie?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
All right, now we'll discuss the long-range facility plan.
Yep, and I've already done my talk, and you also heard me talk a lot tonight. And so you guys had started submitting a list of questions so that we could continue on this conversation. And so Mr. Hermelbrock did the vast majority of the work for tonight in terms of answering questions about gym space and use. And then Mrs. Atho also added in some things on the academic side of that and or some of the uses for us. Yes, please do. Yeah, there's nothing in here that is confidential or secretive. And so the board is welcome to have, or the community is welcome to have a copy. Angie, did you get a copy?
I did more.
Could you maybe Take a couple more. I did not get one.
I'll get one.
Okay.
There's plenty.
Okay, I just want to make sure we had enough first.
Yeah.
We had a stockpile down here at the field.
Okay. And so Mr. Hermanbrock can kind of go through these 4 or 5 pages, and you can send his questions his way. But I think you'll find maybe some of this information useful as we continue having our conversation. Maybe next month we can continue the conversation even more based on the dialogue tonight. So Mr. Hermanbrock, it's
All right, again, some more light reading. I will let you know, I've read through this thing, I don't know, 100 and some times, had other people read through it. And I can still think of things to add every time I read it and go, oh yeah, so it's definitely been a fluid document. Pretty much kind of presenting what we have, the issues with what we have, and what a new space creates. It's kind of the summary of everything. Obviously I'm gonna go back to the Facebook post, like, these kids don't even go out for anything anymore. Well, we have 306 kids in this building. We have 204 of them that are signed up for a sport. And another 141 kids that are involved in some type of activity. Our kids are involved. So the thought that our kids aren't going to gain from any of these things is just silly. That's just nonsense. That's somebody that's never been in this building, from someplace else. So I'm gonna kind of just run through the current gym. So the main gym, the big gym in question is, right now our gym was built in 1985. It's currently one of the oldest gyms in our area, about a 60, 70 mile radius, that is still used as the main competition gym. The only other gym that's currently older in our area is Bishop Neumann and York. But when York built theirs, they built their giant when they built theirs. In the document, there's actually the date of all the schools in our area when they were built. Every other school that currently has an older gym than us has already passed bonds to build a new competition gym. Our gym currently does meet the minimum standards for court size. So it meets regulation for court size. However, it does not meet the new standards of needed space between the floor and the bleachers. Recommendation is 6 to 10 feet. Ours is sitting at 3 foot and 4 foot on each side, and 6 foot on the end lines. I pointed it out to Mr. Crafto one game. Ours is one of the only gyms in the state that you have to walk across the gym to get to the other side. There's not a hallway or anything. So if you're gonna have any access or mobility issues, you stall the game to get to the other side, or we're asking them to cross the stage. Again, mobility issues, we're asking them to get up on the stage or stop the game so they can get to the other side. When they get to the other side, they either have to walk in front of the scores table, both teams, or go up the one set of bleachers that they have access to, and then walk across the top to get to the middle. Again, all those things aren't fun to do in the middle of a game. So I mean, those are the easy issues that are easy to point out. The other thing is ADA compliance. Right now, we're asking anybody in a wheelchair to sit in our main walkways. If we would have to have an emergency exit, and we have somebody in a wheelchair, they're right in the middle of that walkway, because there's no way around them, because everyone's coming down the same ways. Obviously with the limited space, then you stop. If you've been to our places with cheerleaders, we really don't have a good place to go with me.
And that's a question on the ADA thing. What do new gyms have for ADA compliance for wheelchairs? Like section knocked out of the bleachers type of deal?
Most of them are far enough back from the court that allows the walkway.
Good.
You know, and that's where that 6 to 10 foot. But a lot of them do have the big notch. Ours
Right.
have a little notch in there, but
It doesn't meet the new requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
I will say, I just was on practice for a very little amount of time. And I went to a couple basketball games and I felt like, hurry, 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 go get, and then like, okay, well, there's the front row's taken. I got to go up a couple stairs and I'm slow. And so it just was like, I'm in the way. And I'm sure it wasn't a big deal
Yes.
to anybody else, but I felt like I needed to be
yeah,
very
like I
quick
said,
and,
on our home sideline where there's 3 foot, I don't know how you walk with crutches
you know,
during the game. You
No.
can't, because you're going to stop the game.
yeah, you wait for a break and then,
And you don't know when that break's going to happen.
right.
You know, you have to wait for a timeout, because even a dead ball isn't probably enough time to get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
I kind of handled the spectator. Like I said, I've read this so many times, I hardly have to look at it in that speak. So, you know, with that being said, our main gym is used for everything. Play production, you know, volleyball, basketball, speech, blood drive, music concert, everything. So pretty much when something goes on in our gym during the school day, our school day shuts down. Because also when we built that gym is built is there's no passage from the school to the commons without going through the gym. So when we're hosting play production, which is an all-day thing, and that gym gets shut off for 40 minutes at a time, kids are walking outside to get to the new commons. Yeah, and now you're propping open, I mean, you're running into propped open doors, which is, again, you're running into security issues. And we have hosted play production during the school, you know. Currently, our weight training with that, just with the one class, I'm going to kind of get into. Again, you have one gym space. We try to offer 3 different PE classes. That doesn't always work. Because typically they're trying to share warm-up space, because you have a middle school class and a weightlifting class. Currently, our weightlifting class, to do any type of warm-up, have to use the gym, or they're going out into a hallway to try to find that extra space. So one class is always interrupting the other throughout the school day. Our PE teachers are awesome. They're great. They just learn to try to incorporate with each other, but I don't really think they should have to. You know, they should be able to have their own, a middle school PE class should be able to have a middle school PE class without trying to incorporate the weightlifting class and what they're trying to do. Currently, we're losing the gym about 8 to 10 times a year. We lose it completely. For again, music concerts, weeks of graduation, anytime we're setting up early. Like if I have to set up if we're doing a 4:30 basketball game, I'm sneaking in there probably about 3 o'clock or even 2:30 to start setting up, which means I'm taking away from a PE class. You know, if they're choosing to use a PE class. Just so, because teams are showing up at 3:30 for a 4:30 game. Same way at the elementary. Again, then you're just dealing with the bumping back of youth practices. David City Elementary, I think David City Elementary is good for what we use it for as a practice facility. It's not big enough to hold a varsity competition. We do hold our varsity volleyball tournament over there, but otherwise that's about the only thing we can get over there. And those are actually where our second biggest locker rooms are at too. Pretty much whenever time we hold, that's where most of our middle school games are held. When we hold a game at the elementary, our high school teams are displaced. They have no place else to practice, so they either have to practice in the morning or they practice together. They have no other way. When they go in the morning, they displace every other group that goes in the morning. So such as FFA, cheer and dance, speech, all those people, okay, they're on the morning, so now you're taking away their space and you're taking away somebody's sponsored time away because their kids typically walk to school, but now they're going in the morning. So again, it's that competition for kids enhanced. Just because there's only, again, one gym that we can use. Auditorium scares me. We do end up hosting a couple games down there a year. Just if we're running games in the big gym or in the elementary, get it used for a varsity competition. It's either I have to say no, I have to give up every middle school game, that I have a conflict with, or I have to change a high school game to say, yeah, we'll go back to your place because I have a conflict with the middle school. And people don't like giving up their home game. But those are my only options a lot of the time because there is everyone says, hey, just find a new date. There's no new dates to find. Finding a new date between two schools, everybody's calendar's full, unless we can play on Sundays. Probably the big thing that we use the auditorium for is middle school practices. And that is our football visitors locker room. That's the locker room they use. And I'll get into that issue here in a little bit. Currently it's adequate for what they use it for. The HVAC is a little shaky. I'm told that they're trying to upgrade it if they can get the funds, but otherwise heat in the winters, yeah. And when it's hot, yeah.
I've been in there.
Okay.
Let's just go.
I coached down there for years. It did its purpose, and that was about it. I wouldn't say it was great. The floor is old. The floors all need refinished. You're really at the town mercy on that, and they're great to work with. I have nothing but good things to say about Bill and Nate. They do a great job with what they have done there.
Bill's retired.
Yes. And if we lose that auditorium, and I don't know what the plan is, if we would ever lose access to that auditorium, one, I don't know where I'm going with football teams to change because we do not have a locker room space big enough without I'd have to put them in the elementary gym, which means my volleyball team's probably not having practice that day in the elementary because teams show up about 4:30. I don't know why they show up early, but they show up that early. As for our middle school practices, they would end up having to come back here, which now you're back to early and late practices. And where does that put youth? I have no idea. I don't know where a time slot is for that. If we would lose complete access, if they say, hey, no, you can't use that, or we're done putting money into this.
And we do lose access to it a few times.
We do.
Anytime somebody rents the basement of the auditorium or there's a funeral dinner or luncheon or whatever, our middle school ends up not practicing on those days. So even on the days we have it rented, we get kicked out if somebody else decides to use the basement. So even on the times we have it reserved, there's days you get kicked out.
Well, I guess, and I would like to just make something that I've thought about because I've heard it from a couple of different people that it's not the public school's responsibility to take care of the youth programs. And I would argue it is. It feeds directly into our programs. And I think the minute you start to say, not my problem, then it becomes a problem real quickly. And so I think of a public school as a community school and something, we have a lot of offerings for a lot of, and the point is trying to build a sense of community. And if that means that we have a place to go for our parents that have young children who are coaching, we want to sustain that. That's what sustains everything else as it goes forward. So I don't buy into that. It's not the school's responsibility. I think that we're one of the partners. I don't think it's completely on us. I think
we are a partner in that, that situation.
So I think it behooves us to be a partner in creating spaces for our young kids.
And building our programs.
Yeah.
150%, because changing dynamic the last 20 years is you're going to move to a town, you're going to raise your family there. You want a baseball program for your kid to play. You want a volleyball program for your kids to play. And you want a swimming pool for your kid to go in the summer. Those are all things that grow your community. And so if you're not playing a part, and you're exactly right, it doesn't have to be our 100% responsibility, but it definitely is our responsibility, because responsibility not only to the school, but to the town and the community that we live in. Because if we want to attract people here to grow your base and all those great things economically, you're not doing it without maintaining those.
Yeah, investing in the kids right here. So, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to
No,
address
no,
that because you had
feel
good
free to
practices.
interject whenever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the summary of kind of the new gym. And then you guys put it, the survey results, you know, that, I even know what page it is. 22, 3, it's on the back of page 3, with page 4, yeah, just keep turning.
Can you address at all, or I don't know, maybe you're going to, but at one point you had said something about how your school districts, you know, when you're communicating and trying to put the schedule together, that more and more people are wanting to do the varsity, JV, and middle school on the same day, so everybody's going to the same location. So, like, how have those discussions been, and how does that impact?
Oh, we can't do that.
No.
We tried it once and we were at the auditorium. I mean, that's our,
No, like we can't.
yeah, we can't do that.
We can't do that. Would we be able to, or is that
With,
still
with the new
further down the
facility,
road?
yes, because we could run JV, varsity, and a new gym. So we could run pretty much your high school events in this building. We could run our middle school in the other gym. So yes. So that opens up scheduling and what I can schedule and even what I can double up on to run a middle school and a high school event at the same time. I can do that without sending a team down to the auditorium.
Would you say a majority of schools are willing to do that?
A lot of your smaller schools, not so much your Bs but your Ds and your Cs, they like the idea of putting their community in one spot instead of middle schools going to Milford and high schools going here. They're like, hey, because a lot of new schools going up and they have the ability to throw in 3 gyms. So like, hey, can we just send them all to one location? And then now our community is supporting.
I just know it's been nice, like my first experience was football, middle school football.
Yep.
And playing middle school football as soon as that gets over, the JV starts, you know, and so you can get to catch.
And some of it has to do with transportation because you're running out of bus drivers and we can't I can get a middle school and a JV team go in one direction and the varsity to follow. And so I'm only sending 2 buses instead of 3 buses, you know, so, or even 1 bus and a van. And so the other reason for your smaller school districts doing that is they're running out of bus drivers.
I'm just thinking about, but to piggyback off of, it's not our problem, the youth. A lot of our kids aren't going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
Maybe Will, maybe Orion. So it is for the future.
Yes.
It is for the young, our youth.
One thing I want you to note on the survey, I want you to look at Centennial. They have already approved a 3rd competition, yes, with 1,200 seating. So that will go in the work. That is the reason they are currently hosting our conference tournament for basketball. Because they're actually going to be able to put 14 games through that thing in a day and a half almost.
Want to clarify one thing earlier when you talked about the new gyms, like the schools that are all building new. You made a statement, you know, they either built or passed a bond. They haven't necessarily, some of these they found funding to do it. It wasn't necessarily a bond because I know I know for sure of at least one on here that didn't do a bond. So it is they had funding to pass. I just want to make sure that's clarified.
Yeah.
It wasn't all bonds.
So yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not exactly bonds.
And I think the scheduling got a little bit more complex now that we've added girls wrestling. You know, and so being able to find nights or a gym that hosts here. So like this year, I know we hosted one of our girls wrestling meets at East Boulder, did we not?
Well, I feel like the programs are only going to grow, especially with UNL getting flag football. Who knows for girls, you know, like a whole nother I don't know. I just, it's only growing.
I thought Brian's gym analysis here was
Yeah.
pretty
You can just
eye-opening.
kind of see where we're at.
It was pretty eye-opening because I didn't, you know, I mean, I know, but I don't analyze it a lot.
And that
So I
was,
thought that was a handy, and I know it took him some time to put that together, so thank you for doing that. I thought that was pretty enlightening for me.
so kind of get into what a new gym does. You know, we kind of talked about some of the new things. It does create a modern space, you know, that is more compliant and more friendly. When we built this weight room, I heard those rumors too, that we don't know, none of our kids use it. Why do we even need it? We can't keep kids out of it. We can't add enough class periods. Kids like new things. That does create a spark when you get to walk in like, oh, I get to play here. That is a deal. You can't measure it, but it is a deal, to have a modern facility for our kids to walk into and use.
Well, it's also a teacher recruitment tool.
Oh,
I give tours to
100%.
teachers, and the thing that lights their eyes up more than anything they see is that weight room. They're like, wow. I mean, it matters. And new commons, the new addition. I see the new science rooms, and like, oh, these are great. I mean, it matters when I walk to, prospective teachers around that might be in it.
As for the way we would operate, we're eliminating split locations. For supervision, trying to supervise an elementary gym hosting, and in here, I put on about 5 miles in a night. And I'm not even joking, the amount of trips I go through. I'm glad we have nice weather most days. It's gonna cut down on liability issues, because the fact that we haven't had somebody get hurt on that trip back and forth, or get, from tracking in on what floors from tracking in back and forth. I'm surprised we haven't ran into an issue already. So I know, those are things that disappear in a hurry if you don't have everybody going outside to go back and forth between gyms. As for increased flexibility for schedules, Mrs. Athol will get into that later. And it allows us to host those JV varsity competitions. Again, with operations, the biggest thing is securing two sites at the end of the night. When we have people at the elementary and people in here, that's two places that I have to make sure doors are all locked at the end of the night. And sometimes I don't get to stay over there as long as I need to. So we have another admin that stays a little later to help with those things. But the big thing is you're cleaning 2 sites, you're securing 2 sites, and you're supervising 2 sites that are a block away from each other. There are times where I'm in here and I'm getting called across the street because we have shot clock issues. I can only be in so many places. So I spend a lot of time running back and forth. And that's more of my problem, but that would be something that would fix anybody's supervision stuff. Sorry.
Can I ask that question? And it kind of goes back to that survey thing. I think I asked this last time. What defines a competition gym? And is that under the new requirements? So like if we were to have a bigger gym, would our current gym be still considered a competition gym?
The way that it is labeled as you can fit seating on both sides of the gym. So you have 2 sides of seating.
So
More of a capacity, seating capacity than,
That you could hold a
we would be
true,
considered true 2 competition gyms.
yes, that would be considered,
But the elementary, we can seating on one side.
and it's less than 500.
Gotcha.
So,
Thank you.
so even where Centennials is gonna go seating on, their additional gyms are gonna go seating on one side, but the seating on one side is gonna hold 1,200. So it's
huge. And I was going to say, there are a lot of things about basketball or just the capacity, but just in reference to, the reports that were given, and even your report that was given today for our meeting with our speech team hosting one of the largest speech meets in the state. And if you walked into that gym on that Saturday, it was like you couldn't get through people.
Camp was, it was
Unbelievably
shoulder to shoulder.
packed. And we have some nice facilities. We could use all of the rooms, but all the kids are in that one space. And when you have, 400 and some kids all packed in there with all their stuff, that's just another way that we're using that gym, and it's filled up pretty quickly.
And that kind of goes, an additional gym provides for those things. And I kind of get into speech and activity specific in a little bit. But again, it allows us to get our gym into a modern status with the correct or the recommended width, the 6 to 10 foot sidelines. That helps with safety, helps with ADA, just helps with overall viewing of competition. So what does it allow us to do? It definitely allows us to host more wrestling. The way it sounds, and I'm going to be honest, like when we host our big wrestling, I think Donnie brought it up last time, the bigger schools don't want to come here anymore because we're not big enough. I had another school reach out, one of our bigger schools, reach out to me today and said they weren't coming back. They said they love the tournament, but they're not coming back. And a lot of that is people like comfort when they're at places. They like space.
Especially when it's an all day.
Yes, and we host probably, we host a very good tournament. We have no hiccups in our tournament. But when they can go to a gym and not have everybody right on top of them the entire time, that is the deal.
Just with the rules and stuff, like I said, last time I worked at table for the last, 8, 10 years or whatever.
Yep.
Before, just every year it's more and more lean. I hear it, I guess the complaints.
They want that 4 foot, 6 foot gap between
gaps there, and it makes sense based on the current rules, so.
Yep. And a place for the teams to warm up. If you had a second gym, you'd have the competition in one gym and the other gym where the team camps could be, and they'd have a place to warm up.
And you
Matches in between rounds. We don't have that.
right, your options are unlimited when it comes to those
In
things.
the hallway.
I even think like with our volleyball tournament, we could put them both in this gym instead of one in a small gym. And like even with our varsity volleyball tournament, those are top teams in the state that are still choosing to come here. It's because we run we run pretty good tournaments. But at some point, do they look and say, hey, we want to go to a bigger facility? I don't know. I will let Stacy kind of take these kind of the next school things, and then I'll jump back on to the activities.
Great. So some of the additional uses that we talked about were, this year we had a career fair, our first career fair. We were not able to host it in the school for 2 reasons. One, because we would have had to stop our PE classes. And if we had another gym, we would actually be able to host it in there. And if it was large enough, then we could actually host all of the career vendors that we had. So that would be nice to have that here. It would be nice to have that accessibility and a college recruitment component. We could grow that. Eliminate the need to take students off campus for career exploration opportunities, and community use for events. So Christmas, I thought about summer programming, youth events, practices, adult teams, some other things that we could fit in there. School day and instructional benefits. He's kind of gone through a lot of those already, but really it expands our PE curriculum. So right now, we can really only run a middle school PE and then a weightlifting because we just don't have the capacity. There is one period that we have to overlap because we have one lifetime sports class, and it's crazy in that gym. It's not exactly, if you're in that class, it's not a really great class to be in. They do the best they can with it, but they have to split out at some points into the hallway. We would also be able to do things other than strength and fitness. Not all kids want to take that class. Not all kids want to take weight training all the way through school. It's a great class, but we wouldn't have to run it 7 periods a day. phased instruction. We could do theory mechanics combined with activity-based learning. We could have the integration of modern fitness technology for heart rate monitoring. I think of Worm and his machines that he runs for testing speed and agility. I mean, he would be able to do that in the gym instead of in the hallway. Avoiding disruption of the library and cafeteria during testing or large events. And because with our cafeteria, of course, they have to walk through our PE class to get to class, and that happens twice. Speech, 1 act, normal practice times would be nice for them every once in a while. It'd be nice to share that gym space so they could actually not be practicing till 9 o'clock at night all the time. Mr. Okander's amazing, but you know, we don't always have Mr. Okander, so we want to make sure we have accessibility for all teachers. Career and technical learning opportunities like broadcast journalism and live stream production. You could have those things in the gym, possibly, if that were something that we decided to put in there. And we already have a journalism pathway, so that would just contribute to that. Event management and operations coursework and student internships, that just builds on some other programs that we have. And a lot of that goes over the same stuff, but one of the things that we talked about is we really cannot accommodate our PE teachers to have a common plan right now. There's just no way to build it all in and have accessibility in our gym. So as we're trying to build in TSS and our CCCs, our LTs, we're going to have to figure out something creative for them because they're not going to be able to have a common plan. So this would allow us to be able to have a common plan because they could use the two gyms. Do you want me to go through stage play, production? Yeah, I can keep going.
It doesn't matter. I guess we can kind of piggyback. You know, currently right now, most of you know that we currently have with an additional gym, that stage becomes for play production, choir. It becomes its purpose. Currently, we have a set of bleachers sitting up there year round that Mr. Okander has to work around year round. If we think it's going to be a bigger crowd and we want to put our students up there, he has to remove his entire set, put it in the back, so we can pull out those bleachers for students to sit on. You know, just the fact that even though we're not so-called building a theater, Mr. Okander's getting his space and he doesn't have to share it with anybody. And he can set up his set, he can leave it up there, he can leave his practice things and not worry about kids going up there. You know, it becomes his own space for him to utilize and not share. And I think that's the biggest thing. And right now, we currently have a coach that's willing to come in at 6 in the morning and stay at 9 o'clock at night to work around all these extra schedules. I don't know if we're always going to have that person that's willing to start a practice at 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night. You know, they might say, hey, if I don't get to start till 6, I'm only going to 6:30. Mm-hmm. You know, because, you know, with that additional gym space, these practices can move a little quicker and he can start a play production practice after school. So again, you know, Mr. O has been great. I don't know if we're always going to have a Mr. O that's willing to put in 16-hour days.
Not just Mr. Okander, but the students.
The students that have to, exactly. 100%. You know, and I think the amount of students is slowly coming down just because they like to go home. You know.
Well, it's a big demand.
It is a big demand
to be here around 6 in the morning until.
You know, these kids are coming in and doing a morning practice and doing an after school practice or whatever, you know, it's demanding. You know, our kids are troopers. And they do a lot and our kids are committed. You know, how does that affect, you know, we kind of talked about youth programming. You know, I think an additional gym provides just earlier practice time. And ideally, with the third gym, some of those, like, you could almost start some of those youth practices right after school, if not move them down to the auditorium. and they can go down to the auditorium after school. You know, so I think that's a big deal. And again, it's that wow factor of walking in and kids wanting to play there. Again, you know, this week, you know, I have 70 kids out for track. Where do you want me to, if this snowstorm comes through, or I don't know, or I'm even trying to do something safely in the school with 70 kids out for track, because, and then middle school, I think, tried to go to the elementary today. You know, that was the plan of this morning. It kind of changed because it got better as the day, but, you know, when we get stuck indoors, you know, having that additional gym space, especially a larger gym space that we can actually accommodate some of those things, is a big deal.
Or I don't think you discount the ball with cross country.
Oh, 100%. Oh, exactly.
Needing to run
Yes.
the indoors when there's volleyball going on and there's really no space for
Yes.
them to be.
You know, exactly. They don't have a space. No, but that's 100%. So thank you for that. And again, like with golf, if it's, you know, like today, you know, they ended up canceling. I think they probably can't go too soon. I think they probably would have been okay, but go mind the judge. But just again, having that additional space, you know, gym space to when you can't get on, you know, you can get on the track, but you can't get on the golf course, an additional space to work some indoor stuff. I guess any questions before I go back to the other things? The other things are pretty cut in your eyes, but anything about the gym? All right, additional locker rooms. I think this is just as much as a need as a gym. Currently, our middle school locker rooms that we have, there's currently 80 square feet of changing space in each of those locker rooms. So you imagine, oh yeah, there's 80 square feet. So 8 by 10 areas, what they get, and I'm putting teams in there, you know, of 12 and 15 people. So put about 10 people inside this here, and that's what we're asking teams to change in. When we have our wrestling tournament, we're putting 20 people, 30 people in that space. Just trying to disperse them between. We're throwing 50, not quite 50, we throw about 25 into the middle school and throw about 30 into the main ones, into the high school. The high school ones are great. But when I say 80 square feet, that's the reason I can't bring a football team to change in there, because that's a pair of shoulder pads and a person that's taking up 80 square feet. So, so obviously that they're just not big enough. You know, they're good enough for our middle school, but when we start trying to host different teams, and we're trying to host our holiday tournament, sometimes that becomes a juggling effect of trying to space out, like, okay, you got to be out in like 10 minutes because the next team's coming in, because I don't have another space for you. Well, in most of like back in the olden days, you know, you can, okay, both teams can go into the same locker room. You know, you don't do that anymore. You know, you don't have your boys team and your girls team. You know, I don't want to say sharing because they're not really sharing, but they're both using the same space at different times. So you have to get creative there. This year we ended up putting a team actually in a classroom to change, you know, just because I was out of locker room. So, and that, because I had 4 different teams that were there, and I wasn't going to kick my wrestling team out of their locker room for practice. So, so pretty much, you know, so that's our locker room issues. You know, I guess probably the big issue that we had this year, again, with girls wrestling, is girls wrestling practice was getting out about 5:30, 5:45. At the same time, Sam was wanting to go into the locker room and talk to the teams. Well, so either the wrestling girls have to get out of practice early so they can shower, or they have to wait until the game starts, or Sam doesn't get to go into the locker room. You know, it's just kind of one of those, it's like there's no place else for them to go. You know, so it was definitely, do you get out early, do you stay late? You know, you couldn't just end your practice. You know, one time the girls were actually in there showering, and Sam went to go, he didn't go in there, he's like, yeah, I can't go in there because the girls are showering. So he didn't even get to go talk to his team for the pregame talk, because the high school girl, the wrestling team kind of snuck in there before that talk. So, I mean, that's, you know, and that happened 2-3 times where we had to make sure that somebody was going in early or staying late. Officials' facilities. I'll be honest, I'm embarrassed when I have officials come and I have to put them in right now our officials go into our coach's office in our boys' locker room. So they are sharing that space with our team. They're in an office by themselves, but typically my coaches are in that office after school, and then I'm saying, here's 3 more dudes, 6 of you, okay. Hey, can I get you anything? Yeah, it's, you know, you're asking, you know, people to share a small space that is shared with our high school students. You know, there is a shower in there, but that, to me, that's, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if it's appropriate. You know, for that. And currently, you know, when I have officials come to the elementary gym, they use the storage room as their changing room. So I don't even have a place over there for them to change. You know, obviously, if we build a gym, we put a place for officials, you know, that problem solved. But I do believe that we need to have their own space. When we hosted our girls tournament, so we had girls in every single locker room, and then I had 4 male officials. And I kind of looked at Lindsley and I said, this is a problem, because I don't know where I'm going to have them go. And we ended up putting them in the conference room as their space, because obviously I couldn't give them another room, or I could give them a bathroom, and they're like, no, conference room's cool. But to shower, they would have had to go use the one down on the sped room. That would have been their only shower that they would have access to.
Same thing happens if we have like 2 men and 1 women officials. You have 3 team officials. Where are they going to be at halftime? They can't all go in the boys' locker room, you know, and so we end up having to put them in a classroom or something because they don't want to go into separate locker rooms. So the whole point is 3 of them talk about how the first half went and what they need to look for the second half. So we put them in a classroom. You're getting a lot more female officials officiating basketball. And also, you know, at least if they had a separate room, they could go in there together. Obviously, they can shower together, but they can at least have their pregame and halftime conference together if they had their space. But we don't have the space, right?
So, and then kind of takes me down to the wrestling room. I kind of put right now we're sitting with 86 boys out for wrestle order. 86 boys, you know, 86 boys and girls wrestlers. We're sitting with club, we're sitting around right around 80 kids out for club wrestling. And I kind of broke down those numbers, kind of their practice times. Currently, the boys' room is a 70 by 45 room. They run about 45 to 50 boys in there to December. And then January, February, that number goes down because their middle school, high school goes together. That number goes down to about 25 in that big space. Currently our girls, they're currently sharing that room with the cheer and dance room. Having a daughter that kind of took her access to mop that, she constantly reminded me how much she hates glitter because she would have to mop it up during 8th period. He's like, stop telling them to use glitter because it doesn't clean. So I mean, because you're sharing that space. So, and I hear about it about twice a week about when they would redo their posters and yeah. So,
But it's so pretty.
you know, yeah. So, and again, that room space is a 31 by 40. Again, we started the season off with 30 girls, ended the season with 25. Very condensed space in there. Middle school at the cafeteria. We've kind of talked about that. The biggest thing is they're having to set up and tear down. You know, the tables, roll out the mat, then put it all back for the next person. Again, that is a growing program. You know, like I said, we ended up, you know, just 16 of our own girls in that program.
Okay.
But again, they're having to get creative with partners and groups and all those things. You know, where the boys are currently being able to coach middle school and high school in that same room, our girls have to stay separated because I don't have the space that they can do that. You know, that they could share some of that instruction like the board. Yeah, and share some of those coaches. Currently right now, the way our setup is, because the boys have all the removable mats in their room, if I host a girls event or a middle school event, my boys lose their practice. I have no place for them to go. You know, they could, if it's before Christmas, there's no way I'm fitting 40 boys upstairs. Or if I'm doing a middle school practice, or if I'm doing a middle school, you know, and the girls are using that room, I don't know where the high schools make it work. You know, they do their thing, but right now those boys are gonna lose. They lose practice time because that's where all the mats are. The girls is an old Nebraska mat up there that it's secured down. You're not getting that out to drag it out to the floor. So all of the scout mats are down in that blue room. So pretty much whenever we're hosting, we're losing. Having two separate rooms definitely allows practice to still happen and you can still hold competitions. Again, I think that reduces late night practices, you know, and I also think that it continues to grow this program when you invest in it. Am I almost done? I am. I saw you.
Well, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm amazed that you get all this done. You and Mr. Lindsley making sure that you put people in different places and schedule all that. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of extra work is what it is. And these are good problems to have, having increased numbers in wrestling and girls wrestling and things that we're doing. And it's the same thing with FCS. Right now, Mr. Martinez is a popular guy. The program is popular. And so we have a growing number of kids that want to be in culinary. And I don't blame them. It's a great class. But we do not have the space for them. So we end up having to cut students because we simply don't have the stations for them to do the labs. So right now it's really limited to 12 workstations, and it's really not even, that's really being generous saying 12 workstations. We fit 12 kids into one station, quite frankly. It is a kitchen. And so there's a large block station where all the kids gather around, and primarily what happens is the teacher teaches, he demonstrates the lab, he tries to include them in what he can, but they really don't have a full culinary 2 experience. It's just not a possible thing. They don't have the space. So it's really a challenge for him because right now his classroom and his lab are separated. So for him to actually be able to conduct a lab, have people clean up, and have them doing something in the other room, he has to kind of stand in the hallway area and observe them while he's doing it, which is almost an impossible task to ask the teacher to do. He can't even get involved with the kids over here without leaving these kids alone. Limited capacity, we went over that. Accessibility issues, the door is really not big enough to really pass any ADA inspection. So it's not set up for some of our kids that may benefit from that program. We just can't fit them in there and accommodate them. And that's a problem. So we limit our hands-on learning. We limit who can be in that class. We limit numbers. And we don't have the storage or the areas for storing some of our food, some of our supplies. So a lot of it has to lay out on the counter. And it doesn't really look like a professional kitchen like it should. So the benefits of a new FCS room are all those things, really. And being able to accommodate more kids, quite frankly. We right now have 28 kids signed up for intro to foods. We have Foods 1, we have 26 kids signed up. And for Foods 2, we have 18. Right now, we're not going to be able to accommodate those kids. So we're going to have to cut some of those classes to some of those kids. Do we want to do that? Absolutely not. If we could actually put 18 to 20 kids in that room, we would do it. So the capacity's there, the kids want to do it, and with more workstations and more space, we could actually provide that.
What is the max right now that on the what? Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's pretty tight with 12.
Oh, it is. Tight
Yeah.
with 5.
I'm surprised he makes that work, but he does make it work.
Yeah. I mean, even the pictures of the pizza that they,
I mean, you can see it.
yeah.
If you walk down to that kitchen, you know it.
And say, if you go into the kitchen and you just look at it, I mean, there's something stuffed in every single nook and cranny because there's no
He's
room.
doing the best he can with the space. There's just not enough covered space. So
Yeah.
And he's trying to expand and try to do different things, and we're to the point where
Stop.
we can't do it.
This would be really great and really beneficial, but we have no space for you to do that.
We don't even have the space for that cart. We have to find a space for that cart right now. It'd be really great to have a space to store that cart. So
For their
bites and brews.
bites and burgers, yeah.
So I guess any questions for
Well, and you guys had asked how the elementary would use it, and so I don't know if there would be any time slots left after listening to all that. But wishful thinking, obviously indoor recess, Dr. Denker had talked about that last time. If it works with the extra classes that you would be adding and all that. But I thought about, you had addressed the athletic clubs, basketball, volleyball, even the little dance things that they do. But then I thought, it would be a nice space for our health teacher, for Mrs. Remick, to work with our health kids. She right now is using the art room on days that Lori's not in there, and it's tight. But if they want to do big projects where they're doing like robotics or, other STEM projects, it would be a nice space for them to go on their health days to use that space. I thought about Miston could use it for practicing with concerts and, depending on, I don't know where concerts would be. Would they still be?
the thing that was an additional gym is you would still run your concerts off the stage if that's where you want it. And it wouldn't interfere with the PE classes because they could still go on in that area.
Right.
It wouldn't shut down our building for a day.
It would help that because we do take up the gym to practice during the day for that, both concerts, the Christmas and the spring. And then I just threw out just some other ones like, family nights and other community engagement events. If kids wanted to, like, I think about 5th grade had done their wax museum and just things like that. There's always things if it was available. And then I was thinking about our junior mates program that we have our high school kids, and they're kind of locked in right now with the time that they can come. I think because of scheduling, having that flex space, maybe that would give some flexibility where kids could meet at different times that worked better in the high school kids' schedule, and they'd have a space maybe to go use and play in the gym. If kids, I have a very small sensory room right now in the elementary. If kids wanted to take a walking break with a para and go in the gym and mess around and burn some energy, they can't really do that right now, like when PE classes are going on. So there'd be another place for movement breaks or for sensory use. And then I just thought, professional for our staff, maybe they would have to break out for professional development use. When we have our PD days, it's another room to all meet in because we're always looking for big rooms and then even like maybe we could get a wellness program going for our staff in terms of let's meet and walk together in the morning or after school or whatever those openings might be. But I think it's going to be book solid. So those are my ideas.
Well, I think you had mentioned it too in your report at the last music concert that we had that bleachers were packed. There was like no extra
There was
seating
no
at all,
extra space.
in there, so that would open up a lot more space.
Yeah, we ended up having people standing, and I was kind of embarrassed. And I thought, oh, we should. But there, I mean, there's just not a lot of room in there. So,
Or for example, Becky just reminded me, you know, I borrowed the high school gym for our award ceremony, and that displaces, you know, that yes, they can go back over to our gym and do that, but
yep. So it would just be another space or something like that. I think we have like 8 days or something. PE can't still run it or be asked to least.
With the FCS room, that also be the hospitality room when folks at events. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen like Milford or Centennial's hospitality rooms or FCS rooms, but they're kind of like what these guys talked about. Most of them have 6 stoves and 6 workstations, so you can put 3 and 4 kids at each one. I would say it's maybe about 50% bigger than this room, because you have an actual kitchen space, you have a separate classroom for days, and then it's got room enough to put tables in there as well. So if you're hosting an event where you're going to feed 50 coaches, 50, 60 coaches and bus drivers and workers, you can do that. So it's not just used for FCS classroom, but when you're hosting events, it's used for that as well.
We currently use the boardroom.
Yeah, the boardroom or the band room, or the band room behind the stage. So
But the next have that huge.
we use this for speech just because people sit in here all day. I'd rather than bring. I really don't want someone to spill on the carpet to talk to Dr. Nathan. There's a reason we don't have viewers.
It's like ever since I said so.
Exactly.
Found this a lot of really good information.
Sorry, I'm a little long-winded.
No, there are a lot of things that, a lot of questions that I had that were answered, and just some good information other than questions that I had. I don't know, you know, what other questions might get spurred. Just kind of got to digest everything that, you know, and go kind of maybe go through this again, you know, on our own time and kind of think. And I would say, you know, to the board, you know, as again, you know, as you're thinking, as you're going through this, or you're at any time going back to that Google Doc and just kind of putting those questions back in there. And I don't know if we want to try to keep track of, maybe you guys know which, I've answered this question, and then like as we add new, just keeping track of which ones are new and which ones are the old ones. But yeah, I guess it's just a lot.
Like I said, I continually add to this document probably daily. You know, just I'll get thinking, I'm like, oh yeah. You know, so.
I'm starting to file too, just for the other board members. Like all the emails that we've gotten from the public.
They can say that. Yeah.
I've just been saving them into a file, and I want to print them eventually and just have a folder, just go back to, you know, the different comments and suggestions and concerns. I don't know. It's just helpful for me to have them all together rather than trying to scroll through my email and find them. But
That's a really good idea, because I scroll.
I was trying to make it.
That's a good idea. But I'm glad that you mentioned, because we've had several people reach out to the board and give us, you know, access our emails on the website. And so I just want to encourage everybody to do that, to continue to do that, because that's really helpful. And sometimes things are brought up that I didn't think about, or just really good questions. And then also questions that we can also place on that Google Doc, and then hopefully get some answers to it as well.
And just so you guys know, after tonight's meeting, I will scan Mr. Farmer-Brock's document and I'll add it as a PDF to this correct bulletin board.
that would be good.
And so that way it's open to the public. So if anybody watches the board meeting, you know, after tonight's meeting, they would also have access to this PDF. So I'll get it uploaded tomorrow so that people would have access to that too, just so they can kind of follow along a little bit maybe.
Is there a link you could put on the website other than in our board agenda, this activity,
Facility
questions, updates?
Yeah, I could visit.
So you don't have to dig deep into.
Yeah, I can visit with Mr. Abaca and see what makes sense on our website.
Yeah, I mean, this is
YouTube video. Could have like Kirby Scammons or the fact there's a lot of good stuff in here that
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I'll visit with Mr. Abaca.
So we'll link it to it.
Yeah.
Social
So then
media,
if you're going to
right.
attach a link, I'm going to at least write what, as it was provided.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can, probably also upload a link on social media as well.
Yeah, I caught like 12.
I'll work with
spelling
you.
errors.
You probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, we had
As many places where people can access.
I found one.
stuff as possible.
I'm gonna try to fix that typo.
Yeah, that's all one.
And like Mr. Martinez, I'd like to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And I told him I would and say, if you could design your quote dream FCS room, what are some things that the board and admin need to consider? Because obviously he's the one that's going to use it most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not. And I think even the same way with whether it's the locker rooms, the wrestling room, the gym space, talking to the coaches.
Yeah, we're just going to say the coaches who have
saying,
been other
okay,
places.
You guys are the ones that use this space. What are some of the things that are most critical for you to have the most functional space for your program?
Or like she said, they've seen something somewhere else that
Correct.
was fantastic.
Right.
It would be nice if Cole could go visit a few schools too, just to be like, oh,
And I did ask this, I did ask Milford and Centennial, this because it's two I've been to send me pictures, square footage, and drawings of those, just as a
That'd be
starting
cool.
place. And I think you're exactly right. If there's a gym or an FCS room that our coaches or FCS teachers said, you know what, I heard or I've seen this one, it's fantastic, we go visit it.
yeah,
Take some pictures, ask for diagrams, and at some point, depending on how this plays itself out, you as board members, we may want to do something similar too. Down the road, we hear that this FCS room is fantastic, and whether it's the whole board or the 3 members of the facilities committee, go and tour a place or two, in the same way with a gym space or whatever, if we get to that point.
right.
I think there's nothing wrong with doing that as well.
So speaking of that, so we're mid-March right now. Prior to this meeting, we had talked about, community meetings, maybe, and, spring kind of ish, but whatever we're thinking, what's everybody thinking along those lines of next steps? Obviously we're not done talking about our board table and there's still questions and we're still going to be talking about it, but what are people thinking about? When's the right time, or when do we feel like, I don't know the answer of when you feel comfortable, because you need to have something to present. Like, these are our ideas, but then you also don't want to wait super long before you start getting input from the community too. So I don't know what everybody thinks about the timeline of things. Ben, yeah. Which
I think getting this is a ton of information that will answer a lot of questions. And I think getting this out is important. This is the document presenter. But yeah, you probably in schools have to have this would be good information for people to hear in the community. Enough chance for them to ask questions or voice input. At that point, when we should we'll thinking about it, then we'll get into the details, I guess, of what's it look like if you do.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I guess what it does.
Okay, then. I think you said it well. If we don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think this would be a great start for a community meeting, getting what's out here. I don't think that it's definitely not enough just to say it's in this meeting recorded in our website and then we're going to post to the PDF of it. Like, I think that you have to, host a meeting and deliver the information in
Good
person.
to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's good to hear because also like a couple emails that we've gotten, it's good to have and suggestions, but they live it.
Mhm.
And you don't want to take away from that. Like, I don't know. I just sometimes feel like spend a week planning and putting the puzzle pieces together and figuring out a schedule and doing all the things, and then come back and rewrite your email or it. I don't know. We don't live it. They live it. And so when we hear it from them, I just feel like there's way more of a need than I even thought we needed, because I don't live it and my kids won't benefit. It's the future.
Can Deer incorporate it in the digital algorithm? How I regularly to do so. Understand.
My recommendation, if you want to do something sort of that, and you can take it or leave it, would be maybe you have an hour special board meeting before the regular board. So, you have a community engagement meeting from 6 to 7 or whatever, and then you have the board meeting at 7.
We've done that before.
And have it on the same night, but just so you can at least
End it.
end it. Not to.
No, I know, because there will be more than one, but
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the initial one, here's the hour initial,
yeah.
we're going to do a 30-minute presentation and 30-minute Q&A.
Yeah.
Give you an opportunity to express your concerns, your questions, whatever.
That might help us gauge what,
Concerns.
if
Yeah.
we're overwhelmed at that meeting, and
Exactly.
we've got to do something different.
Correct.
Yeah.
It gives you guys an idea of the pulse of the community. You're going to know after that hour,
Yeah.
and that's just an initial.
And I think if you do it in a regular board meeting, you don't get the back and forth from we can do the presentation, but
Right.
even if you advertise it, the Q&A can't happen during a regular business meeting. So if we do a special meeting,
That's just my suggestion.
That would be fine. I guess that's kind of on my point is initially during Quinlan Reed, but on the same night as regular meeting.
yeah.
That. And so that's what's the timing? You're ready to do that in April?
Well, our April meeting's in Village,
And there,
so
that's the case, and then you double on the same night for.
yeah, but
We're happy we go with right.
I'm not saying that you can't have them double. I guess that should be.
yeah, I don't want people to think we're also having, the facilities are going to be here, and then
Yeah, but it'll bring more people to Bellwood then.
it's true.
Or do you have
Or one
two?
school.
You have a community engagement meeting before the April board meeting in Bellwood, and you have a similar community engagement meeting in May here.
See,
Just like I guess part of me is thinking, I'd like to be able to have that meeting in our gym.
I know, yeah,
Because
yeah.
people come and they can see what they're on. I mean, not that most people haven't been in it already, but I guess it's when you're talking about those things, like setting.
Yeah, when you're talking about the baselines, when you're talking about the JDA accessibility.
What's that?
And you put them on the visitor sideline while a game is going on.
Have them check into the coaches.
Part of that maybe is allowing the community to see the current FCS room, see the current middle school locker rooms, see the cheer dance room where we also try to have girls wrestling.
Yeah.
I don't think that's all bad either, because it's one thing to tell them about it, it's another when you see it for yourself.
That maybe you can, do that at the very end or very beginning.
Yeah,
Especially with
either
all
way.
people in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here
I mean-
thinking the same thing. I didn't go to school here, and nor have I worked in the building. I hadn't even been in some of these locker rooms.
And so, maybe it's 5:30 to 6. We open up the facility for a half an hour for people to see the facilities, and then at 6 we have the presentation, and then 6:30 to 7 is a Q&A. But I think having people the ability to see makes a difference.
But in that case, I kind of feel like you only do it then in May, because I don't want people to get the information in April, and then in May is when we're opening up. So, does that but then that's kind of further down the road too. I don't know.
Let's do it in April before.
What's that?
Can you do it in April before your?
Our April meeting's in Bellwood now, so we wouldn't get.
Do you want to get the same?
You'd have to do a separate.
But we would just do a
But could you
separate.
do a separate?
Yeah, we just have to do it earlier so we could all
We
join.
could do like the Wednesday before or something, or before early.
Yeah.
Or could we do the look up
Or I was saying, we
That's
move the
country.
April board
That's
meeting.
true. We
leave it
could go to
here,
May.
Move the Bowen meeting.
It's not board closed.
No,
I don't think we specifically state.
we just do 2 years.
We just
Each set twice a year.
we just say twice a year.
So we could do that too, have the April meeting here and then have,
Okay.
Yeah, that might be that. Let's do that. I'll put that on future action.
What?
Yeah, is that even an action item?
We all are each going on, but Leo.
Supposed to go to school.
that's before, how do we?
Yeah, we're still option. Yeah.
I'm still thinking the hour before the regular meeting, or we need to do more time if there's going to be a 2.
Yeah, I feel like, what'd you say, sir?
Well, we do tours from 5:30 to 6, and then 6 to 6:30 is the presentation, and then 6:30 to 7 is Q&A, and then having the regular board meeting at 7:30. So that way you get a little time to catch your breath, or somebody hits you up after the meeting, has a quick question or whatever, you get time to at least catch your breath before the regular meeting at 7:30.
You can serve some food.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I can put food in here.
I'm kidding.
No, I can't. I don't.
I'm kidding.
That was a perfectly valid question.
Yeah, I was.
I like to eat. I don't like to be hungry. I'm kidding. I will bring my sandwich and put it in my pocket.
Okay. I think
I
that's,
think it's I think if you're ready, I mean, I feel like we've got enough information here. We know great.
Yeah.
Then it's just to the probably ready. So the first wave that
Yeah.
we present here, why we're even talking about this,
right.
right? Because that's what all we're doing. So
Yes. Yeah. I know you've done a lot, put this together, but like I found it interesting. Your specific examples of like such and such a date, we had to put somebody in a classroom. You know, if you could include more of that stuff, the better.
I would agree.
Mhm. Yeah, and like you said, like you're constantly updating.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't have to be just on what we present. Like it's whatever is up to that
And
point.
I wrote down all the stuff.
And I have that if you.
That would be
want me to share
nice.
that with you guys.
Yeah.
Because all of that was
Work good. I give you access. I'll give you access. And
I'll share it with you. Okay.
okay.
Yeah, well, because what we'll do is we'll put a PowerPoint presentation again forth. We'll do a little bit of what I presented last month or whatever, and then spend more time on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's a good plan. I like that. Thanks.
So I will put that on future.
Unless we're like looking at it, you guys think that it needs to be a standalone thing. Too much on the plate, but yes.
My only concern is, and I think if we move the board meeting to 7:30, then I think we're okay. But like, I want there to be plenty of time for questions. And so if we go 5:30 to 6, you know, like you said, unless we start at 5, I just don't want it. I don't want people to feel rushed going through, and I want them to be able to see everything. And I want them.
I don't think it'll be our only time.
That's what I was saying. I think this is the
Right,
initial one.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
People who, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just an opportunity. And then it'll get people talking and then
Because
you'll
you're
have
going to
a,
have people that, hey, I didn't know they could do it.
yeah. And then,
You're going to do it again.
yeah, I think we need to do more than one.
I agree.
And this document getting out on the internet.
Get people talking anything for sure. Also,
Yeah, I don't think we want to wait much longer.
No,
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I think this is good.
Okay.
I will. And we'll get
all we need is
positive energy.
Yeah, as long as the admin is comfortable with that, doing it.
Normal blocks between sports seasons anyway, so you don't have anything
Yeah,
Speech only lasts a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
and
District
he's got
speech
nothing.
is Monday and then he has nothing to do.
Yeah.
So, plus his wife wants him busy anyway. So,
she didn't want to stay on.
yeah.
All right.
As if you haven't put in enough hours. So
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, I
That was-
appreciate
that was-
this was really good.
Okay, so now we'll move on to discuss consider take action on the ESU 7 special education services contract.
Yeah, just asking you to approve the contract. You can see the contract is for just under $1 million, but I would also make sure you notice that we have 3 kids on the waiting list to go to Bridges to Center 7. And so each kid is about $44,000 plus the cost of a para. And so I would anticipate the actual contract in August going over $1 million.
This is less than last year's.
It ends a little bit. Yep. Yeah.
And when will we know when they're going and not on the wait list? Next Wednesday is when they will meet. We'll create
Hopefully in a month or so.
Yep, by then, and then we'll get back to us. So they haven't even met Harvard students yet.
Okay, so we are in need of the service you get. Special education services contract. I will make the motion.
All right, moved by Casey. I'll second. To approve the ESU 7 special education services contract for next school year. Donnie?
Yes.
Marcus?
Yes.
I vote yes. Justin?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Personnel, discuss, consider, take action on staff resignations. We have 2 resignations to consider tonight.
Ella Kissinger Koval, high school English, and Mr. Bader, elementary sped.
Here, I move to approve the staff resignations that were submitted.
So I could, or pledges.
I'll second it.
All right, moved by Stephanie, seconded by Justin. Casey? Can we say no?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
I vote yes. And discuss, consider, take action on new teacher contracts.
Just have one, Carlito gets David C. Elementary. The second, correct?
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve. Second.
All right, moved by Donnie, seconded by Marcus to approve the contract as presented. Or Donnie?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Marcus.
Yes.
Okay. And to the end. Future discussion items, obviously facilities.
Okay.
And we will be back here next month. And we'll get all that information out to public on our special meeting prior to.
Yeah, and I would just remind you guys, we do have a short special board meeting next Wednesday morning at 7:30 a.m. so that Clay can do the oath of office and be officially a board member. So that's a week from today, 7:30. And then Stephanie and I are going to start meeting with them then right after that meeting and start doing some new board member orientation like we did with our last 2 board members. So.
Yep, and anybody is welcome to come to those onboarding sessions too. And we just obviously can't have more than 3. So only one other person at a time, actually. So let me know.
I have an appointment like in that day, so I won't be able to.
So yeah, we're gonna and we will be meeting with Clay. Our goal is to meet with him
At least once a month.
once a month for at least the next 6 months. And so yeah, just to get him up to speed on everything.
Will he have a NASB training that we all had the new, or how does that work?
Quite encourage.
But that won't happen till
Okay, till after the election.
after the election.
That's what I wondered. I didn't know.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, with all of that, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Someone. Second.
Moved by Marcus, seconded by Donnie. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
9:07.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
I just find out. And it's just like, you and Casey was like, he says my latest question there.
Well, it's in case.
Sort of just, that's 7 down. Look what. That means you want to do that. So they go.
She said
You wouldn't want to like him.
My graduate. I didn't need one.
No, just you have one.
Seven.
Yeah. No, you.
No.
here's sentence.
Yep.